Hey there, folks. Hope you're having a good night, enjoying your day. I had a long one. We will say that. Whew, had a long day. All right, get this together. Just want to do this. I guess I can do this. So we gotta raise that up. Sorry, trying to do something right now on my other window. How you guys doing tonight? Hope you're having a good evening. All right. Well, while that goes, oh shit, I kind of need that information. Drop this somewhere in your script. Other functions. Okay. All right. Especially too tired. Had spicy ramen as an experience. All right, hold on. I gotta do something. Somewhere in your script, drop this somewhere in your script. Okay, hold on. Selection. So I guess we can add it right above here. I don't think this is going to hurt anything. All right. And then inside your render table, so right after this, find, where's my find tab? There it is. So right after this, add this. So is there only one instance of that? Yeah. Okay, so once that there. All right, I'm gonna save this, see if this works. Beautiful. It does work. All right, cool. Want to clean it up though. All right, do that. All right. So, how's it going, everyone? Like I said, I hope you're having a wonderful night. Tonight's stream is going to be a little different. So I want to talk a little bit about a tool that I have been creating over the past couple days, and I want to be very clear about this. When I say I don't mean that I have written this code. I don't know how to code. I don't understand like 95% of this. I get it to a degree, but I have used ChatGPT to help me make this. So, what am I referring to? Well, when I run D&D games, I like to have a bit of, player information in front of me that can help me run my game. Now, I've talked about this tool a number of times in the past. Okay, so obviously I use D&D Beyond. And D&D Beyond is great because it's, just one of the best digital character sheet options, for D&D. And unfortunately, there is not a good equivalency for DMs out there to have a digital DM screen. Now, there are some websites that do offer some solutions. For example, 5e.tools has the DM screen option, where this is the one that I use, but the way that you can do this is you can set up a blank screen, a blank grid of different things. If in a session, your players are going to be fighting, a vampire warden and a Cinderhulk, you could load this in and you could put in for, rules for special things. However you want to do it, you can do that. So now I personally always liked having my players' character sheets available. So when I would run a game, I would just go in and just kind of brute force it and have everyone's sheet up on my screen. So that this way, or not even on my screen, but I would have a tab with everyone's windows. And so this way I could quickly jump between them. And then I eventually came across an app, an extension for Chrome that was called the D&D Beyond Campaign DM screen. And it would pop this information up when you went to the campaign page for the group. So when you were on this screen, it would give you all of that information. And this was really nice. It showed the hit points, it showed the armor class, the initiative, the speed, the save DCs, the saving throws, and the passive skills, as well as the senses. This was a great tool, but unfortunately it has been removed from Chrome for one reason or another. I cannot tell you why. Now, there is another extension available, and that is this one, the D&D Beyond DM screen. Now, this is what I was using for quite a while. And its nice feature, it's actually this one that I had up before, is that it allows you to pull up all the characters that are active in your campaign. You can go and you can click to each one of them. It saves what you're doing across each one of them. So this way you don't ever lose your spot. So if I want to pull up guidance and then I switch over to Bridget here, I can go back to Smith and there it is. Now, I'll be real with you. These tabs up at the top, I didn't use half of them, okay? I don't necessarily need to know what their race and class is. That I don't know. I don't need to know that. Their hit points is very nice to know. Their AC is great. I love to know their passive perception. I don't really care about passive insight or passive investigation or their stealth bonus. I do like to know their senses though, but I want to know their ability scores, and I want to know their save modifiers. I want to know their save DC for if they have a spell save DC. I also want to know their movement speed as well. And unfortunately, this worked, but now it doesn't. Because if you wanted that on here, you would go up to this little icon and it would bring this up. Now in here, you can change any of these things at the top. So if I wanted, instead of stealth, let's say that I wanted our saving throws and ability scores. Okay, cool. So I can click that, and let's just say, let's actually put ability scores first, and we'll do saving throws second. Okay, so there we go. Now, I used this for a while, but I didn't use it this way because I thought that this was a little too cumbersome to look at. I just wasn't a fan of this. So what I would do is I would go through and I would erase all of these options. Let's get rid of insight. We'll get rid of perception. And we're going to get rid of race and class as well, because we don't need that. And then I would add a bunch. And then I would go in and I would change the first one to strength top. So that's going to be the modifier instead of the ability score. And I would do that for each one of these. So we go dexterity, we go con, we go intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And then this one is where I would do perception. Because again, it is nice to know that. But I still wanted to have the saving throws. So the next step that I would have to do is go into strength top, scroll down to manual. In manual, excuse me, it opens up this line of code. And so you click this little target, or actually let's do this. Let's put a space and then a slash and then another space. And then we'll hit target, and you go in here and you find the data you want. And you click it and it adds the code in for that. And as you can see up on the top, it does it for everyone. So it makes it super simple to do this. You don't have to do it for every character. Unfortunately, this website has a tendency that if your browser updates at any point, you have to go back in and fix all of this every time to set it up the way you want it. There's no way to save like the state of it so that you can reload that next time. If that was the case, this would be the perfect tool. Fortunately, that's not the case. So because I was going to be running some games and I wanted to have a tool that I could use as a digital DM screen, I started to think to myself, is there something that I could create that gives me the information I need at my fingertips? And so I started thinking about different tools that I had. Now, one of the things that I have available to me that has something like this is Encounterlog. And Encounterlog is a program created by Robert George, who has developed many tools for the Encounter Plus VTT, which is what I use. One of the things that he's created is Encounterlog, which allows your Encounter Plus to send rules to back and forth to D&D Beyond. Or let me rephrase that. It allows rules to be sent from D&D Beyond to Encounter Plus. So this way, when my players roll initiative, or if they, adjust their health. Things like that can affect. Now, this is the screen that pops up when they do that, okay? And this is all fine and good. Let me try and scale that up there a bit. So, this is nice because this does offer real-time updates on hit points. It also offers the passive perception, the investigation. Can I zoom in on this? There we go. Okay, let's make this a little bigger. So, like I said, it has passive perception, passive investigation, passive insight. It shows the senses, and then it shows the armor class as well as exhaustion, which that's a nice touch. But it doesn't show the ability scores. It doesn't show like spell save DC. It doesn't show movement. There's a lot of things on this that I wish it had. Unfortunately, it doesn't right now. So, like I said, I started thinking about a lot of these options, and I thought to myself, well, why don't I look into making something myself, And at first, I was going to go very simple. I was going to make a spreadsheet. I love making spreadsheets. So I was like, I'm going to go open up Sheets, and I'm going to create something in Google Sheets. And that'll be what I do because, I do that a lot. So I started thinking about how I would want to do it. And I really didn't get too far before I just sort of stopped and realized if I wanted to do it through that, I would have to manually update it every single time I went to run a game. So I didn't necessarily want to do that. So I thought to myself, well, what if there was a way to create like an application on an iPad that could scrape data from D&D Beyond? So in that moment, I thought to myself, well, what better than to go to ChatGPT? Okay. So I asked ChatGPT, how difficult would it be to create an iPad app that lets me pull character data from D&D Beyond in order to use it like a DM screen? I'd want to have an overview screen where I could see all the characters' names, pictures, AC, blah, 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 blah. I'd also want to be able to click on the character and have it pull up the character sheet on D&D Beyond so I could access and edit their inventory and features. In order to do that part, I'd have to be logged in directly to D&D Beyond, because again, I'm essentially trying to recreate this, which this is directly linked to D&D Beyond, which lets me log in so I can go in and like add stuff to a player's inventory if I had to. Not that that's a regular occurrence, but it is something that I wanted to take into mind. And it basically said like, hey, it is doable. Like this information, like you can create an app, but the problem is that D&D Beyond is not really too keen on you doing this. Specifically there, I started Googling stuff. It is literally in their terms of service that you're not allowed to scrape data from the website. So it very well would have broken terms of service. So, it was kind of explained to me like, hey, here's the things you're going to run into. Like there are different ways of doing this, but realistically, like, how difficult it's going to be is going to depend on my knowledge of coding and like my comfortability with different stuff. And it gave me suggestions like this Swift UI, which is a way to develop apps. So I'm like, well, how hard is that? And it says, well, it's not that hard, but like you just sort of have to learn the code. And I'm like, okay, what would I have to do, with this? And I'm like, I don't want to put it on the store. Like, I didn't want to make an app that was going to go on to like the community essentially. Like, and maybe even at first I didn't, because I know that you'd have to pay Apple in order to do that. So it gave me a couple different options of like, hey, you know, make a developer account, you know, get a paid developer account, stuff like this. And it explains that you have to have a Mac in order to download Swift UI to make the app. And I'm like, I don't have a Mac. So what do I do? And it's like, well, you can use Cloud Mac. You can, you know, which is basically like renting a digital Mac. You can buy a cheap Mac. I'm like, no. You can use Virtual Hackintosh. No. And it's like, don't even make it a native iPad app at all. You know, run it, you know, build it locally, HTML and JavaScript. And I was like, okay, that's more reasonable, because if you can run on, you know, if it can run on a, you know, on a window, then I should be able to open that on my iPad, because one of my ideas was using this on the iPad. So I said, okay, you know, like, let's explore that option. It seems like the best. What can we do? And, you know, it took what I already said, and it built, you know, a stream of code. Now, again, I don't know a lot about code, but what it gave me, and I'm gonna do this real fast. I'm just gonna make a new tab here. We're gonna paste this, and we're gonna save this as HTML. We're gonna save this as DM screen. Actually, we're gonna save it as test DM screen. So this way I can show you guys like sort of how I iterated over time. Okay. Where's this? There it is. So this is what it gave me. Now, do not ask me why it gave me the data for the made-up data, arguably, for Smith's character and Glenn's character from the New Age campaign. Blows my mind that it has that in there, but this arguably got me pretty close to what I was looking for. You know, it shows their AC, their hit points, their passive perception, their senses. I can click this, and it shows me their ability scores and their saves, as well as their speed and their passive insight. And I can click that for any one of them. Now the problem, and also I can click this, and it opens their character sheet on D&D Beyond. Now the links don't work because it's linking out to like character, you know, to a non-existent character sheet essentially. But it was like, oh yeah, you can just go in here and you can update this information for every character. And I was like, okay, like, this works, but, you know, is there a way to pull this information from D&D Beyond so I don't have to manually enter it? And it sort of explained that, like, you know, I really can't just directly from D&D Beyond. And it sort of explained the reasons. And then it gave me this, which was like a piece of code that's in JSON format. So it would add an option to like add a character, and you could just type in the stuff, so I wouldn't have to edit the code necessarily. And I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do that, but like, okay. So I was like, let's add a character button, and we can try the JSON, you know, format. So then, let me do it this way. So then we replace this with that. We save it. And now the page looks like this. Okay. So it's basically the same thing. You can go in, you can view the stats. But now if we have the JSON format of information, we can just import it. Okay. So I'm like, well, that's fine, but I also don't have the JSON, you know, file format for all these characters. So I'm like, I don't know what that's gonna really help me with. Okay. So then I, you know, was like this, you know, hey, like, but I was like, okay, you know what? Arguably, like, I am getting somewhere with this. But at the same time, I started to think back to this, you know, program. Yeah, see how they all changed? Completely unreliable. Now, one of the things that this website had, or that this extension had, that was really nice is this button here, right here, where you can change the URLs. I know you can't read anything because it's in dark mode, but it allows you to go up to these pages and it opens up a web page inside of here. So I use 5e.tools. So I could go down to here and type in, you know, 5e.tools is the name, and then 5e.tools, you know, and there we go. And now I can click this and, oh, wait, you know, let's copy that. URL. Okay, don't know why that's not showing up anymore, but that used to work. So I used to have the DM screen as that panel. Weird that doesn't work, but it allows you to open it inside of there. So that's what I was like. At this point, I'm like, hey, can you add a way to like access other pages? You know, so I was like, you know, like, what if we have a way to like embed stuff into the page? Okay. Because on 5e.tools, if you go into the DM screen, let me paste this over here real fast just so I have that. I can go into this, okay? And let's just say that I increase the width by 6. Let's say I have 6 characters, okay? Set my dimensions, go up here, copy that character, go into here and hit embed, and embed any URL, and then I can change that, and now this loads a D&D Beyond character sheet in here. It's not logged in or anything, but it does give me the full suite of tools for this character that I can go in and I can view stuff. So I was like, you know, hey, could you do something like that? Is that something that you could do? And I said, you know, is there a website that could do this? And it was trying to tell me about different things. And then it started talking about iframes. So I said, okay, you know, let's see what you can put together. Okay, so I wanted to see what it would do. So that gets me to this. So very similar to how this is set up, I could have different characters over here and see their information. I legitimately don't know how it's able to bring this art in here. And I haven't been able to recreate that. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know. But so this would give me the option to like set the URL for these different tabs. So I'm like, okay, you know, this could work because this is pulling information from a different DM screen essentially. So I was like, okay, you know, maybe this can work. And then I said, you know, let's add a layout button so I can change how many panels there are. And that got me to this, where I can change what the layout is. I can add panels as needed. And I can remove the last panel if I had to. So that got me a little bit further to what I was looking for. But even at this point, I was essentially either having to manually enter all of this information in this panel, because this is all just the same character, or I was having to pull up character sheets from D&D Beyond, which I really wasn't aiming to do. So I started to think about, like, you know, what's a way that I could get the information I needed from D&D Beyond to this program. And that got me thinking back to Encounter Plus and Robert George. Because one of the tools that he has created is a shortcut that is designed for Encounter Plus that lets you import your characters onto the iPad. Here, where is it? Yeah. So you can get these shortcuts that allow you to import a single character or an entire campaign's worth of characters onto it. Now, let me show you what this... Oh, did not want to... No, stop it. All right. Hold on. All right. So on the app, this is what the shortcut looks like. Okay. So it says that, you know, when you activate this, if the shortcut input of sharing it starts with D&D Beyond, you encode the URL, and then you get the contents of play5e.online, then, you know, no images, false, circles true, character, and then the encoded URL. And if it's not a compendium file, you show the alert. Otherwise, you open it in Encounter Plus. So what does all this mean? Well, it basically means that if you activate that shortcut on the app, it goes to a website called Play5e Online. And that is this site. Now, this was created by Robert George, the guy who created Encounter Log. So it is designed by somebody who understands what this is all about. So I actually reached out to him and was like, hey, you know, I'm looking to create this thing, and I would love to get, like, some advice from you on how to get this information pulled. And he's like, well, you know, Encounter Log already does that. And I said, yes, but it doesn't have all the information that I want. And he said, you can't easily pull all that information without accessing the API, and it's hard to do with just HTML. And I explained, you know, that I was using this extension for a while, and he even referenced the original one that I showed you. And he said, you know, what exactly is it that you're looking for? And he can potentially add it to his next release. So I sent him this. I said, you know, this is sort of what I want from this window. I want to see a movement speed, and I want to see their ability scores. Like, would it be nice to have their, you know, spell save DC? Yeah, it would. But I know that's not probably possible, or at least it wouldn't be necessary to everyone. But I would love to know this information. And then this started leading me down the rabbit hole of, well, what if I, used the information that you got from this with this page somehow. So that's where I told it that I found this website that encodes D&D Beyond character sheets into .compendium files. And if it could somehow pull the data from that. And so it gave me this. Where it's like, hey, export your D&D Beyond characters to a .compendium and then, drop the XML file. So, and it told me, like, look, all you got to do is, you can upload a .compendium or unzip it to get the compendium.xml, and then, it'll parse that information. So I did. I went to this, I copied the URL, went in here, pasted this, hit all characters that share this campaign, and clicked convert. Once that was done loading, I got this down here. I got a little compendium file. Okay, it's an XML source file. So I went into here, I clicked this, and load characters. Okay, weird. That's not pulling anything. No, don't pull my downloads folder. That's weird that that's not working anymore. Because that worked before. Oh, no, that's right. That's right. This was before it was able to parse things. Okay, so here's what I did. That's right. I completely forgot about this. It wanted me to also change things. So I said, well, look, here's the thing. Here's the I basically pasted the entire XML file that it gave me. And it was like, okay, figuring this out is going to make everything super easy. So it's like, here we go. We can add a thing that parses this information out and everything will get pulled. And I said, okay, like it says, okay, let's, what you wrote, let's put it into a functioning file. Oh, come on. Don't jank out on me. So it gave me this code. So here we go. This should work. Yes. And this is what it spat out. Now this is pretty elegant. And I will admit, it gives me the name, gives me some information, the AC, hit points, passive perception, speed. It gives me the full litany of ability scores as well as saves. Then you can click this button and it opens up their character sheet. So I'm like, all right, we're starting to get somewhere. Like, this is actually starting to turn out viable for what we're looking to do. But then, I started to think, what could I do next? So I asked it, could you create something that would function similarly to this Chrome extension by offering expandable set of columns with each character being their own row, letting you target specific details on the sheet? And it said, we can give this a shot. So it gave me this. So now it has quick information on the left, and you can click it to bring up a little bit more. And this was pretty all right for what it was, it serves its purpose. At this point, the layout was starting to look more like what my final envisionment was going to look like. But I wanted more. So I said, this is great, but can you just have it where when you click the character, it opens their D&D Beyond page? So it wrote that. And now, when you click the character, it would open their page. And I was like, that's fine. I don't want to have to navigate away from the page, though. Can you open it in the window? And it was like, yeah, we can do that. So now, when you click it, it opens it up over there. And it even gives you the option to open it in a new tab if you had to. And you can go to anyone's character sheet and it loads through them. Now, the problem is that you sort of have to be zoomed out this far to see everything on here. And I know it's hard for you guys to see that on your screen. It's pretty hard for me to read it on mine. Now, one of the issues was that, like, this character, for example, has like pronouns in their thing. Their name's pretty long. So like, even if I removed that, it's still pretty long. So I was like, okay, what can we do to work around that? So I had a couple changes that I wanted to make. I said, it didn't make sense to show current HP because it wasn't going to be able to update in real time. So I'm like, just show the maximum. Then instead of showing the ability scores and the modifier, show the modifier and then show the saving throw as well. And, I was like, can you add a way for me to open other windows in there? And it was like, yeah, we can do that. So it gave me this. Where now we have max HP. We have the ability scores and the saving throws. And now when we go up to here, see, we have the option for character sheet and we have custom URL. So now I can go in here and I can type in 5e.tools, or I could type in thievesguild.cc. Oh, hold on. HTTPS. There we go. So that worked, and I was really happy with that because I think this was the point where I started sharing like my journey on the Discord and stuff about like the things that I was doing. And I said, okay, this is great, but let's add some more, okay? I want to have the option to have multiple tabs. Like, I don't want to constantly have to change between, 5e.tools and Thieves Guild if I need to access both. Also, I want to be able to have a way that I can reorganize these characters, because right now, it's loading based on how it like pulls the information. So I'm like, I kind of want to be able to way to reorganize this so I can use it as an initiative tracker or just to have it alphabetically was in the back of my mind. And it was like, yeah, we can do that. So it gave me this. Now we can go in and we can reorganize the characters however we want. And now we have 5e.tools and the Thieves Guild as their own little fixed buttons. And we can go in and we can, actually type in a custom URL to have a new thing. And I was, again, really happy with this. But I knew we could do more, okay? Because I wanted a way to have the ability to open my own tabs in here. I didn't necessarily just want to have these fixed ones, even though that was nice. I wanted the ability to have my own and be able to delete them. I also at this point was like, hey, I don't need to know the character's age and like alignment and stuff like that. So can you just not add that information? Because this was becoming an issue. And it said, yeah, we can do that. So it gave me this. Now things are a little bit more condensed. They can still get moved around, and now I can open new tabs as I wish. So if I want to go to Thieves Guild, you know, .cc. Oop, hold on. There we go, and I can go back to here, I can go to here, and I can close them as needed. So, again, really happy with what it's given me, really happy with the changes that we're making. So I said, okay, now I want to know if there's a way that we can put the ability modifiers under the character sheet, okay, or under the characters. Because one of the things that I'm having an issue with is I still can't see these ability scores when this is zoomed in. So I'm like, can we just have them under it? And it said, yeah, we can do that. So now when you load up the characters, the ability scores are right underneath. And it's easy enough to see them down there. So you can still go in, you can click them, you can add new tabs and all of that stuff, and everything right now was pretty good. So I sort of thought that I might be done at this point, but the more that I played with it, there was more and more things that, like, I realized I wanted. So now I said, okay, well, can we have a way to resize this panel on the left to make this page a little bit bigger if we wanted to? Additionally, one of the problems that I noticed was that, like, the paladin in the group, Alwyn, his saving throws were not calculating correctly, because since he's a level 6 paladin, he gets to add his charisma modifier to all his saves. So I said, hey, look, can we fix this? And it said, yeah, we got this. So now we have a resizable bar that allows us to, you know, make a little bit of room if we need it. And also, now the paladin's stats show correctly, as you can see here, you know, +5, +10, +5, +10. So, you know, again, things were moving smoothly. And one of the things that I wanted to fix at this point, something that I had noticed, was that every time I opened up one of these windows or one of these character sheets, it's essentially loading a new instance of that window. So if I wanted to look at a spell on Alwyn here, let's just say Darkness, but then I wanted to go over to Ariella. Okay, and I wanted to look at their spell, Mage Hand. And now I want to go back to Alwyn and look at Darkness again. It's loading the page completely new. So I said, is there a way that you can maintain the pages? Because it was also happening with 5e.tools. Every time you loaded it, it would lose that. And it said, okay, we can do this. We're essentially going to give each, you know, each frame its own instance. So now when we go in here, we can click the page and it loads it the first time. And let's just say we go to Alwyn. We want to check his mastery on his longsword. But now we want to check on Nim and the Assassin Blade. And when we go... Wait, was this not the one that changed? Maintain... No, this one should have been the one that changed. Paste. Save. Okay, hold on. Wait, was this... Or was it the one after this? Assassin Blades or... Okay, hold on. It must have been the one after this. For some reason, I don't think... Oh, you know why? You know what? This is what it is. Because it's... No, that's what it was. I had yet to get to this point, okay? So right now, the change was that when I go to character sheet, and then I go to 5e.tools, it saves 5e.tools, okay? So I can go back and forth. But the problem is every time I click to a different character sheet, it reloaded it. So now I said, okay, hey, can you make the characters alphabetical by default? I would prefer that. Also, I kind of missed having the fixed buttons for 5e.tools and Thieves Guild. Can you add those back? And it said, yeah, we can do that. So now we have 5e.tools back. We have the character sheet, and we have, you know, the ability to add them as we need it. So we're doing good. We're doing good at this point. And honestly, I was livable with this. And I was like ready to actually be kind of done with it. But then I started to think, okay, you know, I want to change, you know, like every time that I did this, I was making changes my own because it had the HP max. I said, let's just change this to HP. Also change PASS period for passive perception to perk, because that's how I've always read it. I said, additionally, I've been removing the, like, what essentially this top portion was, because I didn't really need that. So it went in and it fixed those. And then I said, well, hey, this is weird. I just noticed I went to try to go to https www.google.com, and it's like, hey, no, we can't do that. So I'm like, you know, what's the deal? And it's like, well, hey, you just got to realize there are some websites that don't allow themselves to be embedded with an iframe on another page. And I said, you know, okay, you know, I didn't know that. So, and I was like, thanks for everything. I'm going to bed at this point. And then the next morning, hey, can you add character portrait thumbnails? And it said, yeah, we can try and do that. So it said, you know, we'll give it a shot. And if we can't, we'll just put a little, you know, a little thumbnail with an out or a little initial over here. And I said, okay, you know, let's see how this looks. And I said, okay, you know, none of the characters at this point I was like, okay, I don't know why the thing isn't showing up, and it just wasn't working. But I moved on, and I said, hey, I just realized I want the character senses on the list as well. I wanted, you know, like dark vision and blind sight and stuff like that. And it was like, hey, you know, you can add all this. And so I did. Okay. And then I said, hey, would there be a way to have fixed tabs for each character that stay loaded so I don't have to reload them each time I click to them? I'd like the fixed tabs, but still want to be able to click the character to open them as well. And they're like, oh yeah, we can totally do this. So now, when you open this and you load up your characters, it gives us the characters at the top. And now, much like it works with 5e.tools in this tab, you can go from tab to tab and you can access all of them with a quick grab. It also added senses over here. Now, one of the things I didn't like was I didn't like how the words separated the numbers. I eventually realized how I could fix that myself, so I started moving speed to the other side. But overall, I was really happy with this at this point, but I knew that I could get more out of this. So I said, I had an idea last night and I don't know if it's possible to add to this. I was thinking about adding a series of checkboxes under the players list that would let you show/hide the various pieces of information in the list. Like, I prefer to know my players' AC, HP, passive perception, speed, and senses, but other DMs out there might want to have the spell save DC of characters who cast spells readily available, or they might want to have passive insight if they're running a more socially driven campaign. Other ones I figured might be useful would be initiative bonus, and maybe their resistances and immunities. And it said, okay, we can do that. So now, at the bottom of the screen, you see we have a bunch of check marks. And if I click initiative, it adds a panel for initiative. And if I click passive insight, it doesn't add passive insight. And if I had spell DC, it doesn't add it. But resistance and immunities do show up, and they are accurate. So I said, you know, why did these other things work, but these other ones didn't? And I said, you know, also, are you able to format the ability score modifiers and the saving throws under the character sheet to be in 2 rows? That was a little, like, choice that I don't know if I'm fully sold on yet, but it said, yeah, we can do that. So now we have their ability scores saved in a slightly different format. I sort of like this a little bit better, you know, because this is something I'm really used to seeing. And I think people who play on their iPad or their phone see this sometimes a little more. And that's sort of how I like the layout. I don't like just like the string across. But we were able to figure out the passive insight and the spell save DC. But I noticed something about this. I said, okay, Smith here is a cleric, and he has a spell save DC. So why is this not showing up in here where it should be? And so I looked in to the XML file myself. Now, in here, I realized that from what ChatGPT had told me, the spell save DC didn't work because there wasn't a spell save DC tag, but it was able to parse from the information that within the description section for the spellcasters, like Alwyn, for example, who's right here, it lists spellcasting and it lists his spell save DC. But for someone like Smith, who is playing a 2025 or a 2024 cleric, it doesn't actually list spellcasting in his description because, or it does, but it doesn't list like what his ability score modifier is. So I told it, I said, okay, you know, that's fine, but can we just do the math? You know, and I said, you know, the math of that is 8 plus proficiency plus spellcasting modifier. And then I gave it what the examples of, or I gave it like what all the details for the like, you know, who does what, like, you know, intelligence is wisdom and stuff like that. So we end up with this, which now if I go into spell save DC, it calculates Smiths correctly. And if you notice, that little circle has shown back up. Don't ask me why that showed back up. It just did. So I said, okay. At this point, I had a big list of stuff. So I said, okay, you know, now this more or less is functioning almost exactly what I want it to be for myself. Like when I sit down and play my game, I can live with this, okay? But then I said, okay, here's what I want, because I want to now release this to the community somehow, but there needs to be some changes. So first off, we're going to have to not have 5e.tools and Thieves Guild automatically tabbed. Like, one, you know, Thieves Guild, maybe, but 5e.tools is a bit of a touchy website, so I don't necessarily want to have those auto-tabbed up there. So we need to get rid of that. Secondly, I would also like to have a splash screen that explains what the tool is, how to get the .compendium file, how to change it to a zip, and all that. Secondly, I want to get rid of these little circle portraits on the side. We don't need them. It's not working, but maybe just make the names a little bit bigger. Also, I want the order of the headers up here to be AC, HP, Speed, Initiative, Passive Perception, Passive Insight, Spell Save DC, then Senses, Resistances, and Immunities. I want all the numbers that every character is going to have for sure first, then the Spell Save DC, because that's only going to be spellcasters, then the Senses, because not every character has additional senses, and then immunities and resistances are going to be just tertiary, but again, not every character has those. So, you know, and I also explained to it, like, hey, you know, Alwyn has blind sight, but for some reason, it does not show him having blind sight in his senses in the XML file, because right here is his senses. It claims he only has dark vision out to 150 feet, but if we go into here, we can very clearly see he has blind sight out to 10 feet. That's because it comes from a class ability. So I said, is there a way that I can just edit these fields as I need? I said, also, with the idea of them editing fields, I don't want them to have to do this every time, because it reminds me of having to fix this every fucking time. So I said, can you make it save locally, like a certain layout and the data, so they don't have to retype it every time? And I said, lastly, let's add a little splash screen. Let's add a little header that says, you know, Kelf's DM screen, a digital DM screen for modern DMs. And it said, yeah, I gotcha. Bada bing, bada boom. So we got Kelf's DM screen, a digital DM screen for modern DMs, quick reference stats for D&D Beyond characters, no logins required. Welcome to Kelf's DM screen, a quick reference DM screen powered by D&D Beyond, exports from play5e.online. What is this? The Kelf's DM screen is a lightweight, read-only digital DM screen. It shows key stats for your D&D Beyond characters and opens their sheets in tabs for quick reference during play. This tool does not log you into D&D Beyond, and cannot see anything beyond your account. It relies entirely on data you export from play5e.online. Some websites, including D&D Beyond and others, I changed that eventually, may block being shown inside the page. When this happens, use the open a new tab button or open the site in a separate browser tab. How to get your information, or how to get your character data. Go to play5e.online, copy the URL of one D&D Beyond character from your campaign, paste that into the URL, paste that URL into the text field on play5e. I don't know why it didn't put online there, but it is what it is. Check all characters that share the same campaign. Do not check any other options. Click Convert button to download a .compendium file. Find the downloaded compendium file on your computer. Rename it so the extension is .zip instead of .compendium. Unzip that file to get its contents. Inside, you'll find the compendium.xml. This is the file you load into this page. Back up here, click Choose File, select either the original .compendium or the zip XML file. Really? The first bot after an hour? Crazy. It's customizations for other DMs, and I'll just leave it how it was. Oh. And then using the screen, the left panel shows a list of your characters and key stats. Click a character row to option a dedicated tab for their character sheet. You can edit any of the numeric or text fields directly in the site. Your column choices, character order, and edits are saved locally in your browser and reloaded automatically next time. Use the plus button in the tab bar to add your own websites, battle maps, rules, references. Many thanks to Robert George for developing play5e.online. Without that site, this tool would not exist. Thank you. So now that we have this, we can go in here, load our characters. And now, this is where I was ready to leave it. You know, we have our AC, we have our HP, we have our speed, passive perception, spell save, DC, senses. I can even go in here now and type in / blind sight. 10 feet. And there, we now have editable fields that we can go in and manually change if we need it. Like, for example, if Smith were to get an item that increased his spell save DC, I can change that. Now, the cool thing is, if I close this and then reopen it later, as long as I load the same compendium, it saves all of that information. Everything is saved locally. I can also go in and, check for their passive insight, their resistances and immunities, and it's all just in this nice little tab off to the side. So again, I was pretty happy with this, okay? This is doing really everything that I wanted. And then I had another thought. So I said, where is it? Here we go. I want to add a link to my own URL in case folks want to stop by the Discord and ask questions or just say, hey. So can we add kelfscorner.com? Also, can we add a button to view the splash screen even when sheets are loaded in case someone wants to see the details? Because right now, you can't see that splash screen without reloading the whole thing. I said, additionally, I had an idea that DMs might not use D&D Beyond, but could still use this to just type their own information. Since the cells in the left panel are now editable, can you make an option to add a new blank character to the list and leave the fields with an X to allow the DM to edit them as they please? Maybe something with like a little plus button under the player list. Also, add a version and text thing at the top because I thought that would be fun. So, we got this. So now we can see all of our characters, and if I need to go back, I can click the About/Help button, and it just brings me right back here. I find it hilarious that these are still viewable in there. I'm just not going to change that. But now we have a link out to, my own link tree. If folks want to come by the Discord and say what's up, Now also down in the bottom left, we have a blank character button that allows us to go in here and let's make a character named Zippy Dick and Shorts. And he has a 15 AC, he has 69 hit points, 30 movement speed, passive perception of 17, and he's a bard, and he has a spell save DC of 16. Now, the problem is, they don't have ability scores. That is an issue, which was the next thing that I asked GPT. I said, hey, that's fantastic, but I don't have a way to edit the ability scores. So, gave me this. Now we can go down in here. We got Zippy Dick and Shorts. And we could say, okay, what's your, you have a, say you have a 5 to strength, you know, you have a +5 to strength, but you have a, you know, you have proficiency with it, so you have +9. Okay. And then we can, you know, I can get into it. But at this point, I was like, okay, well, that's great. But here's the problem. Now, every time I load this, Zippy Dick and Shorts is going to show up. And I don't necessarily want that. Because let's just say, you know, I add the, you know, somebody wants to remove that character, you know, for the future. So we now have, what is going on? Oh yeah, no, that's right. That's right. This is the this is the one that it wanted me to just edit the stuff. So at this point, the test screens are done. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to remove this test screen because now where we are at is this. Okay. You know what? Let me open this real fast just so I can resave my digital DM screen. There we go. No. So now we are on to version 1.2 is what this sort of is. Even though we have had numerous versions, and you can see down here all of these, you know, all of these different versions, these 17 different versions technically, what I'm considering version, you know, 1.2. Now, one of the things that I did want to add, and I changed it last time, but I don't think I saved it. I'm gonna have to do over here real fast because I don't remember exactly how I did it. Okay, so we need to do find for play 5e. Here we go. Where is it? Go to, yes, here it is. Okay. So go to play 5e. No, we need the opposite direction. This. And then we need to put this a save and reload. What that does is that makes this, so that little change that I just did there makes this a clickable link out to, well, it's going to kelscorner.com, but we're going to change that to play5e.online. So now when we click this, it goes to play5e.online. So now we're at the point where this is as far as I've made it. But at this point, I'm very happy with how this tool looks. So as we stated before, when you load up to this website, we now have a couple different options down here at the bottom that it explains. But get to 100%. There we go. So you go in, you know, you would go through all the steps to get your compendium file and to, you know, unzip it and everything. We open compendium, we load characters, and we have, you know, everything we need. And now, if we need to, we can get rid of Zippy Dickens shorts. We can also go in and remove any one of these characters if we so choose. Now, here's the only thing. Because it is saving locally to the compendium, I don't know how this would react if you were to delete one of those one of these pre-existing characters on accident. The other thing is when you make a blank character, obviously it doesn't have a character sheet for it to pull from. So when you add this, there we go. So it will create a new tab, but there's nothing for it to reference. So not that that's necessarily like the worst thing in the world, but that is just something to remember. Let's get rid of him. And now we can go in, we can still see that initiative works, our passives work. The names are a little bit bigger. It's a little bit easier to just kind of glance over and see everything. You know, all the ability scores are accurate and correct. And I just want to say, I have been having a ton of fun with this. There has been a lot of like, a lot of little like trial and error things as I've been going along, and just like, this is the tool that I have always wanted. Oh, I guess I can hit reset save layout and it would get rid of, it would restore the right characters. But this is everything that I've always wanted. Like, legitimately, when I have played D&D in the past and have had different, like, digital DM screens, the main one being, you know, this one, where I'm just pulling up 5e.tools. And then having, you know, before I would have this and I'd have all the character sheets. And then having this was a game changer, but it's not reliable enough. So to have something where when I sit down to run a game, I can, you know, let's, like, if we close all these out and this is my main screen, I have every one of my character sheets for my players available so that I can help them and reference along as they are going. I don't have to worry about the pages, you know, reloading and stuff like that. And then I can also access other websites that I use regularly, you know, like I was showing, thievesguild.cc. Now, unfortunately, not every site is able to show up in this, okay? Like I said, Google doesn't let you pull it up. This is one of the other big ones that I use, and I don't know if this one will. Oh, thank God. But I don't know if it'll let me log in. Oh, it did. Beautiful. This is one of the greatest things. Could it be possible to have the tab for the new character to point to another resource for characters? Yes, it could. I'm sure it could. You know what? That's a good point. Here's a small change. Can it be possible to have the tab for a new character point to another site / resource. I also want to have the new tab for a new character pointing to another site / resource for the character sheet. Something like, what's that? What's the other one? Something like the other tabs that lets you enter your own URL. Now, see, I just want to put one thing that I want to say in all of this. None of this would have been possible. Like I say, none of this would have been possible with without Robert George. Hands down, this would not be possible without him. This would not have been possible without ChatGPT as well. I do not know how to code. Okay. I don't know how to, I don't know how to read it. I don't know how to interpret it. And it is one of those things that this purpose of it is what I love for what AI can do for us. We'll have to see what it says. All right, you know what? Let's close out the page and let's see if we can reopen it. See, one of the downsides to how much I've been doing this is that everything is now like so compounded with how much code there is. It just takes a while to do it. All right, so all right, so where's the file for this? Here we go. So in parse player data from XML. So let's find that. Find where you build the character object and add custom URL. Okay, so wait. So let's find this little bit of information. Beyond URL. Okay. Custom URL. And then in here, we can add this. In apply save states, when we recreate manual characters from a save state, include. Okay, so find this block. Okay. So wait, is it this? No, it's not this. Which one is this? Oh, no. We need apply save state. Here we go. This is what we need. No, we already did. Oh my god. Yeah, nope. I don't trust that I'm doing everything right. So right now we're back to where we were, and we're gonna let this code with itself. All right. It thought for 1 minute and 4 seconds. Now we will see what it's doing. And this is going to take a hot minute. All right. Come on. Yep. Now we're in for the long haul. So this is the point where, like, I was able to do this pretty quickly before, but at this point, there is so much stuff that it's like building upon that every time I do this, it's like, you know, it has to go through and essentially rewrite everything, and it takes up so much processing power. Personally, I would prefer if the list of characters were highlighted differently, sort of like when a spreadsheet switches colors every other line, it makes seeing them separately. Okay, I could see that. Trying to think of how that might look. Let me close that. I feel like ChatGPT doing coding like this is like that old phrase, you know, a watch pot never boils. It's like, if I just close the tab and I don't watch it, it'll be fine. All right, let's... All right, this is going to be version 1.3. Of course you saved like that. HTML. Bitch. load that up in there. There we go. Oh! This went very different than I expected. Oh, this thing went way off base. All right. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Why did it suddenly change everything? So this is one of those times where you have to oh, yeah, you know why? That's probably why. Okay, hold on. All right. Can you add these new changes to the existing code? Also, would you be able to add something where each character in the list has an alternating color perk? Would you be able to add something where the characters in the list have an alternating color per character to make it a little easier to read and quickly glance at the list? For reference, so we don't get confused, this will be version 1.3, and here's the current code so we don't deviate too far from what we have developed at this point. Because God knows I do not need it to just suddenly start, you know, making up new bullshit. And now we'll let it think. Certainly great. Seems to create an access. Well, I'm very happy with it. I mean, even in its current iteration, like this is just trash. I don't like 1.3. I think that's gross as shit. No. But, you know, 1.2, I think this is fantastic. I think this is great for what I need it to be. You know, very rarely would I need to actually add a new character, but I think for some people it might be a benefit to them. But I love this. I love this tool. And the other nice thing about this, so one of the reasons why I wanted to sort of make something on my own is because I want to be able to put this on my laptop. So one of the things for me was that my laptop is not the most powerful thing in the world. I mean, it's about 10 years old. I mean, technically it's not even my laptop, it's Kaylee's. But like, this is the laptop. I know you can't see it. Where's my window? Or where's my camera? main camera? There it is. So this is my laptop. This is the one that when I was living, in my old house before I built this computer, I worked off of this laptop and another laptop at the same time. So this one was more powerful. Unfortunately, this wasn't able to handle that extension that I was using on Chrome. The nice thing about building this in the HTML format as I've been doing is that it is so lightweight on something like Edge. Microsoft Edge doesn't really actually have a lot of like overhead resources like Chrome does. So I can actually load this in on here, and it actually formats slightly differently on here. You can see that like the active character is actually highlighted on here. So that is something that is a little bit different on this. But it offers all the same features. I don't know why it doesn't show that on my side. Like, I don't have this on dark mode or anything like that, so I don't know why. And it could honestly just be the fact that it is, whatchamacallit, Chrome? Because honestly, I never even tried loading this up in Firefox. And I want to say I still have Edge, yeah. So let's see what they look like. You know what? Let's do it. Let's just see what they look like. Why do I have all these just loading up? Jesus Christ. All right, so let's load you. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so Microsoft Edge just has a slightly different look to it. That's all that is. And honestly, I don't mind that. I kind of like how it actually has the highlighted thing to show you that it is the one you're on. What about Firefox? Okay, so Firefox has the same thing as well. Firefox is loading up the same way that that the highlighted choice is the way that Edge is doing it. So there you go. So if you're using Chrome, I mean, I might have some extension that's causing it to look that way. I personally couldn't tell you. Like this to me being in the dark mode, this is totally fine for me. Like I can live with that. I can understand why the layout of this, it would look better for other people. And in truth, I do plan on using this, on my my laptop more than anything else. So it actually looks really nice in this, where it shows like, the selected tab and stuff like that as well. All right. How's ChatGPT coming along? It should be fine at this point. Okay, good. All right, let's see what it does. We're gonna save this. 1.3. Motherfucker. .html. Yeah, it has completely fucked shit up. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that all of a sudden. Hmm. So where's this code? Okay. So this is the little bit right here. Both main row and ability row. Okay, so wait, if we just take that, and what is this under? This is under the style heading, so that's easy enough to jump to. And we can just throw this in towards the end of the style, which is right about there. Okay. So this is changing 1.2. That's this. All right, so it's not updating on there, but is it going to update on this? No. Okay, so, this little thing did not change. That's fine. I'm just kind of annoyed that it's changed, like, all of it. You know what? I'm going to yell at it. I don't know why you went and redid the whole format of code. You completely changed the look. Well, I don't want a whole remake. You to take this code and add a section that lets you use a custom URL in the right panel when a blank character is selected, and I want the character list on the left to alternate colors to make it more visually appealing. Surprising to change. Yeah, no, it does. I mean, honestly, if all else fails, we can go back up before it made that change. Oh, I never put my my background back correct. We can always go back up to where it did properly, file everything, and we can, see what it can do from there. It's one of the nice things about ChatGPT is you can go back up to like previous answers and get, you know, new answers from that. But at the end of the day, like this is totally functional. This is everything that I could have asked for, you know. Like I am very happy with this. And you know, have no problem whatsoever to you know, release this to the public just as a, you know, fun, quick, lightweight tool for folks looking to have some digital D&D reference tools. Let's see what it is doing. You know what? Fine. We'll edit this. Okay. All right. So, in this field, all right. So, what are we looking for? We're looking for this UID section. Here we go. Okay. So we just need to add this to the bottom. Right there. Custom URL. Okay. In new character, in here, we're going to add custom URL. So in custom URL, or in save state, we want that same string. Wait. Hold on. Let's... Okay, so here we go. So this is save state persistence. Okay. So let's copy this to there. In apply save states to character state. How many instances of that are in here? Okay, so this... This is add... So custom URL is already there. But we need to add this. Okay, so... In applied save states, update both the manual only branch and the override branch. When creating a manual only character, include custom URL. And okay, so we need to add this line at the bottom. Okay. Let's get that formatting right. Okay. Use the URL bar for blank characters. Okay, so we're going to find this piece Good, there's only one occurrence. Thank fucking God. And we are going to... So we're gonna take this whole section here, and we're gonna replace it with this. Cool. Okay. So, and then we're going to update this block. So let's find this little piece. Hopefully there's not too many instances of that. There's only two. Good. So this one we need to replace with this. Right? Yeah, we're replacing this whole thing with this. Then in the rest of this, swap this for effective URL. Okay. Let's find this. What? In the rest of load character tab iframe? In the rest of load character tab iframe, swap this for effective URL. Okay, so this is what it wants me to change. Yeah, okay. So instead of this, it wants effective URL. Update the load button handler. So we need to find this. Just right there. And we need to replace it with this. Now when you click manual create blank character, no D&D Beyond URL, you'll see the URL box above the right panel, and you can paste the URL, hit load, and that'll be tied to that character and open in the iframe. Okay, cool. So let's save this and let's run it to see if it actually works. So if we load this, it should load all of our characters as is. Everything looks to be up and running perfectly fine. But now we want to create a blank character and we want Zippy Dickens shorts. Great. All right. Now we need to have a URL that this links out to. So now we can go into here and we can load this, which we can't pull that up, but let me see if I can Find something that we can reference it to. Here we go. I wonder if this will work. Perfect. All right, there's Zippy Dickin' Shorts. So now when we go back to Zor, for example, that works, and then Zippy Dickin' Shorts. And then stuff like 5e.tools, I imagine, still works. Yes. 5e.tools. Yep, beautiful. Everything else still works just as it needs. All right, so now that that works, oh, excuse me. So now we're going to copy all this. We're going to create a new one, and we're going to call this one four. And this is going to be where we add the alternating stuff. So right now, you already have a subtle 2-row banding. Let's make the alternate banding a little more visually distinct. Okay. So let's find this data. Okay, so here's the little bit of information. So if you want to make it even punchier, you can bump up the alternate value. Every second character slightly... There's not much changing in that. All right, let's see what it looks like. I don't actually think much is going to change with this one. And arguably, it could also just be because it's on, whatchamacallit, because it's on Chrome. So you know what? I'm going to pull it up on Edge as well when I do this. I want to do it through Chrome first, though, because that is what I mainly use. Okay. Upload. Yeah, see, nothing's really changed over here. Okay. But what does it look like over here? Okay, so it is a little bit punchier over here. Like you can see this one's a little darker, like these two are a little darker than these two. It's not super noticeable, but arguably I don't think that's a huge deal. Like I said, I'm mainly using it on Chrome, so like on Chrome there really is no like discernible difference, but that could just be because of the way that I have Chrome set up. Like I don't know if dark mode's actually working on this or not. Like I know it says that it's not, but like on here these are the same colors. So but I don't think that's a big deal. That's at least not a big deal for me, in my opinion. But I am going to change the number in here. Where's 1 point? So we're going to change this to 1.4. We're going to save that. We're also going to save this, change this one to 1.3 just so I can keep these actively, correct. But okay. So as of right now, like this is to a point where I would be comfortable like essentially releasing this to, other folks. We gotta get rid of zippy dick and shorts. So what I plan on doing is I'm going to unpin all the other versions that I have that I've put on, my server on Kel's Corner, and I'm going to upload the newest version, and I'm going to pin that. And then what I'm going to do is over the next couple days, I'm going to go around to different Discords, ones that I can trust. I know there's plenty out there that would like look at this and be like, this is a ridiculous tool. We don't, you don't really need something like this. And to that, I would agree. For a lot of people, you don't need something like this. This is a tool meant for a very specific kind of DM. But hopefully, hopefully other folks can get use out of this and, get something worthwhile from this tool. And if I'm the only one who uses it, then hey, at least I completed what I set out to do. My goal in creating this was to have something that I could use to run my D&D game. A concern is plenty are unhappy with the use of AI and may get grumpy at you. That is true. No, believe me, I fully understand that. But I can't change people's opinion on that stuff. That is not something that I can, help folks with. So, it is what it is in that regard. But I am, happy if other people do get use out of this. So I'm going to reach out to some folks that I know in the community. I'm going to let them know that I made this, and, I'm going to see what they say about it. I'm going to see, what their opinions are on it, and, hopefully get a chance to talk to them about it. But yeah, so I know this has been a long stream, 2 hours of me essentially rambling on about this tool, but, after I created this, I wanted to have something sort of out there in the world where I explained, where this came from and what this is now. And then I'm very happy with it, and at least for my own uses, this thing is fantastic. And if other folks can get some use out of it, then hey, that's great too. But, and there is one person that I would love to send this to like get his opinion, and that is Robert George. So I might reach out to him, let him know that I piggybacked off of some of his stuff to create this. So I was amazed you were changing it during. Yeah, so spell save DC was one of those things that came up during the session that I was like, oh, it would be so nice to see the spell save DC, because when I forget what he cast. Smith cast something. I don't think it was Toll the Dead. Oh no, he cast Banishment. He cast Banishment on one of the Thunderboars. And I was like, all right, what's the save? And he's like, Charisma. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, oh, what's the number? And he looked it up, and, I'm like, I wish I had that in here. There's, and here's the scary part, okay? As I look at this and I talk, literally right now, I just had the thought, what if I had a button right here that added a new row that was just a blank row, or down here there was a button that was, plus blank column. so that this way, if maybe I didn't need, you know, like maybe somebody who wants to use this for like, you know, I don't know, Pathfinder. Okay, maybe they want to have something else in reference there. Granted, this is not designed for Pathfinder. This is designed for D&D Beyond. But arguably, like, if somebody, for example, wanted to have the column that referenced, you know, I don't know, proficiency bonus for some reason, like, could you add, like, you know, your own column in that regard? I don't know. There's always changes that can be made in the future. But for right now, I think I'm going to head out. I'm going to go get changed. I'm still technically in my work clothes. And yeah, I'm going to go play some video games and relax for the night. So thanks for joining me, everyone. Thanks for hanging out for these last 2 hours and, you know, letting me exposit upon, you know, this little tool that I've created. So, yeah, thanks. I'll see you guys later. Bye, everyone.